The Magic Keyboard for the iPad has been out for quite some time now, and I was finally able to save up enough money to be able to purchase one for myself because, let's be real, these things are expensive. Now, there was a lot of hype around these when they first came out, so after all this time, is it still actually worth it? Let's talk about it. So let's get one thing right out of the way, the price. Like I said, these things are expensive, and I have the 11-inch iPad Pro, so I was able to get my hands on the cheaper version of the Magic Keyboard, which came around $399 Canadian. If you happen to own the larger 12.9-inch iPad Pro, then you're looking at spending around $449 Canadian, and that's just crazy. But again, is it actually worth it? If we look at the build quality, there's no denying it. This thing is solid. There's absolutely no give to this and no weak points, so there is no need to worry about bending or breaking in any way. The hinge itself is really firm. Once you set it to a position, it stays there. The Magic Keyboard uses magnets to help keep the iPad in place, and these magnets are strong. I never once worried about my iPad coming loose or falling off. The keys themselves are full size and use a scissor mechanism to offer a super clicky and very responsive typing experience. They're backlit and you can either manually adjust the brightness in the settings or in the iPad's ambient light sensor will do it for you. There's an extra USB-C port for charging, which is a great addition because it frees up the port on your iPad for other accessories. Keep in mind that charging through this USB port is a tad bit slower than charging it directly through your iPad. Just how slow? Well, I put it to the test. Going from 10%, I charged my iPad for an hour. Using the USB-C port on the keyboard, I was able to reach 61%. Going through the iPad itself, I was able to do 72%. So it's about a 10% difference, which is not really a big deal. The keypad isn't the largest out there, but it offers full gesture control similar to the MacBooks, and it clicks everywhere. With the viewing angles, you're able to open up the Magic Keyboard up to a range of 130 degrees. In the time that I've had it, I found this to be acceptable, though some of you may feel like the range should be a little bit more. The one thing that you'll notice right from the get-go is the weight. The iPad itself weighs about 1 pound. The Magic Keyboard actually weighs more, weighing in at 1.3 pounds, so altogether 2.3 pounds. Now, to put it into perspective, the new 13-inch MacBook Air actually weighs around 2.8 pounds, so it's about half a pound difference, so just think about that. Speaking of the weight, we can't forget about the weight distribution, and what I mean by that is, on a regular laptop, all the weight is on the bottom, so opening and closing the lid is actually quite easy. With the Magic Keyboard itself, the iPad is the computer, so the majority of weight is on the iPad and it makes it a little bit top heavy. So opening and closing the actual case itself isn't quite as easy to do. Also, when you have it in your lap, depending on how you're sitting, there are chances that it could fall over. Another thing to notice is the lack of function keys. There is no way of controlling things like the keyboard brightness or even music controls without actually touching the iPad or going through the menus themselves. For example, to adjust the brightness of the keyboard alone, you have to go into Settings, General, Keyboard, Hardware Keyboard, and then you can control the brightness. Something like that could have easily been fixed by giving us a shortcut in Control Center or even a widget on the home screen. Speaking of shortcuts, the Magic Keyboard does give you some shortcuts to use within apps. All you have to do is press and hold the Command key and a list of shortcuts that are available will show up. Now, at this price point, I do wish that Apple would have given us the ability to create our own shortcuts since we don't have a function row available to us. So for example, you can make something like Command Shift up or down to be able to control the volume. Let's just hope they come up with something in a future update to be able to help us out with that. One gripe that I have is the inability to use my iPad in portrait mode. Now, it's not very often where I do actually use my iPad in portrait mode, but there are still apps out there like Instagram that don't have a landscape mode. And at this price point, you would think that they would have thought ahead and created some sort of magnet alignment to be able to give you that option. Who knows, maybe in the Magic Keyboard 2 they'll come out with something like that. One thing that I would also like to mention is all the reports that you hear about battery life are true. The Magic Keyboard drains the battery on your iPad significantly. Now, for me, when I typically get home, I switch from using my iPhone to my iPad. So I do all my texting, all my social media, any YouTube videos that I like to watch, any streaming as well. I'll do that all on my iPad. Now, normally without the Magic Keyboard, I can typically go through 3 to 4 days before I actually have to charge my iPad again. When I use the Magic Keyboard though, I get 2 days. I'm lucky if I can perhaps get a third day, but yeah, I'd have to charge it right away. So I don't know if they can fix that with a future software update, but another thing to keep in mind. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention earlier with the build quality is the materials that they use for the Magic Keyboard. Now, they used some sort of matte finished plastic vinyl, I don't know what it is, but what I'm trying to say is that this thing is a fingerprint magnet and it attracts smudges, dirt, everything. Now, if you're like me, I like to keep my things looking clean and pristine, you know? And with the Magic Keyboard, it's impossible to do that. And it just looks dirty all the time, and I hate it. I hate it, but overall, like I said, it is built well. I just wish that they use a different material to avoid that. Now, with all that being said and done, let's go back to the original question. Is the Magic Keyboard worth it? Well, that depends. The Magic Keyboard is great. It's responsive, it's solidly built, and in classic Apple fashion, it feels premium despite it being a fingerprint magnet. It does what it needs to do, and it upgrades your iPad to the best version of itself. This is the closest thing that we have so far of being able to replace your laptop completely with an iPad. So overall, it's a great accessory to have for your iPad Pro. One thing that I find really hard to justify is the price point. Starting in at $400 is a little bit ridiculous if you ask me. If it were to start, let's say at half of that, at $200, then by all means, it's a no-brainer and they would sell like hotcakes. But that's not the case, and they cost $400, and that's expensive. And I don't know about you guys, but I still work a regular job. If I want to go out and buy things like this, then I have to save up for it. But if you have the money and you're able to afford it, then by all means, go for it because you'll be really happy with that purchase. But if we look at the grand scheme of things, the iPad Pro starts at $1,050 for the base model. If you add the Magic Keyboard, that's an extra $400, bringing your total at $1,450. The new 13-inch MacBook Air starts at $1,300. Just some food for thought there. But that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and slap that like button and let me know what you thought down in the comment box below. If you want to keep seeing more tech videos like this one, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. With that being said, thank you all once again, and I'll catch you on the next video.